last night. So Niz, what's your feedback? What's your take? What do you got? And as you,
I would say that white privilege, there's no doubt that a lot of white people benefit from it, if not most. But to say that the Hillary Clinton phenomenon or the Clinton phenomenon is backed solely by white privilege, I would classify them more as having aristocratic privilege, having class privilege, having the privilege of having accumulated power over 3 decades. That is their privilege, because if you 10 years ago or 20 years ago, any politician of any color had run for any nationwide office or federal office and then was hit by an FBI probe, they would retire that campaign or resign their post immediately, because the press alone would kill them in public opinion and the party would demand that they step down. But Clinton and the gerrymandering and division of power in the two-party system has completely set up the political system in such a way that public opinion is like water on a duck. It has zero effect unless it's a tsunami, which is what we were hoping for with Bernie. So I would say, yeah, she has white privilege, but it's the 10 other reasons that makes her able to ignore the fact that she has taken money from Monsanto, from prison industry complex, and yeah, that's what's enabling her.
all right, good. Noah, are you live? Is your mic on? Let me make sure your mic is on, because I want you to jump in there and say your piece.
So I was commenting in the chat room that actually there was a piece earlier today that talked about how Jewish people weren't actually even considered. We're talking about like white privilege and whether or not Hillary has white privilege and Bernie also has white privilege. He does acknowledge that he's benefited from white privilege. We talked about this last night, even with his involvement, to the extent that he was involved in the civil rights movement up north. His experiences, would definitely, he benefited from being seen as a white guy. However, his experience growing up in a tenement, or not a tenement, but a three-room walk-up in New York, son of Jewish immigrants. I mean, no, I'm not under.
I wasn't trying to say live. You look like you're under a table. I thought
you were talking to me.
It's a loft bed. It's a loft bed.
I just moved up. I thought you were talking to me.
But anyway.
Go ahead.
It's a loft bed, but I had to move locations this evening. But anyway, no, seriously, like when we look at the differences in their backgrounds, just comparing the two of them, we look at their differences in the backgrounds, we look at how society would have looked at their backgrounds when they were growing up. Bernie Sanders being the son of Jewish immigrants in the 40s, in a time where Jewish people were not all. I mean, there's a piece that I put in the chat room that was in Huffington Post by Seth Abramson today, just talking about how, not saying that Jewish people had the same, experience as people of color have had, but it still has not been the easiest transition to quote-unquote whiteness. And we've seen this with other groups historically too. Italians weren't necessarily considered white, neither were the Irish. So there is this thing in construction of whiteness, but Hillary Clinton, and some of y'all might get mad out there, but she is like a prototypical, WASP. So, like, she has had, even on the Fusion show, you mentioned this, or Solomon mentioned this last night. On the Brown and Black Forum, she was asked about white privilege, and she acknowledged that she herself has white privilege. Right. She struggled to explain what that meant and babbled on incoherently. However, she acknowledged it. So for everyone else who's caping for her, my buddy Joyanne Reed, everybody else, it's ridiculous to act as if she has not benefited in some way. And I do agree, though, with what Niz is saying about the layers of privilege involved. But I really do think that, we have other people who have layers of privilege, but that whiteness, that takes her to a whole nother level that, again, other people would not get to. We've talked about some of the privileged young black people that you talk to, on Twitter, and they have certain levels of privilege as well.
Yep.
like Bakari sellers, but they have they have a certain level of privilege as well. But at the same time, there's always going to be a dividing line because they're not white.
All
And
right.
she is allowed to exist unchecked.
Let's do
So-
this. I'm going to give HA the last word on his article. HA, I enjoyed the article. I did read it, and I enjoyed
It was a good article.
Thank you.
More
Thank
than
you, Noah.
anything else,
Thank
I enjoyed the fact that did you intend to do this? Did you know when you wrote this that you were going to expose all of those white progressives that do not even care or think that Hillary benefited from white privilege? Did you know that was going to happen?
Well, let me tell you, I knew it was going to happen. In terms of the backlash on Twitter, it happened. And in terms of when people read it, they can't deny. Nobody can deny that if Hillary Clinton were black or Latina, that she could survive an FBI investigation, that she could survive 67% of Americans distrusting her, that she could survive even if you look at 2008, let's talk about it. In 2008, if Barack Obama had said, hey, I survived sniper fire in a war, and it was proven not to be true.
It'd be over.
Over, absolutely.
Done.
And so the thing is, I never meant to say, and Ben, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you like when you were saying, and I never meant to say that Hillary Clinton didn't work for where she's at. She obviously worked. But my thing is, well, are you working for the country or are you working for yourself? Is this a project like you have to be president and you'll take money from prison lobbyists and Wall Street and every interest that harms your constituencies?
Yeah.
Because you know that your constituencies, I'm talking white, black, Latino, I'm talking everybody who's a Hillary supporter knows but doesn't care. And
Okay, so it's not just that they want to deny it; it's that they can care less about it at all.
Yeah, 100% right. I mean, you said it better than me. They don't want to deny it because you can't deny it. It's a fact. They don't care. So when you I've literally in my articles, for example, Ben, I've written a lot. Okay, in almost every article, Ben, in almost every article, I talk about Harvard's Orlando Patterson's op-ed in the New York Times, where he says Clinton's 3 a.m. ad against Obama was racist, had a racist sub-message, and he said elements of that reminded him of Birth of a Nation, the racist movie.
Yeah.
Okay, nobody cares. For me, that is an embarrassment. That is something that, hey, you utilize. It wasn't a Willie Horton ad. It wasn't overt. But is surreptitious racism better than overt racism? So a Republican, you know where they stand, they're racist. But is surreptitious racism from a progressive? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I have to applaud you on that.
Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Listen, I don't mean to cut you off, but that you have just properly defined the struggle, in my opinion, that black people have with racism in the Democratic Party and progressives and racism in the Republican Party. At least in the Republican Party, we know they don't care about us. We know they don't like us. We know that they're playing dog whistles to keep their base. But on the Democratic side, we have the I shouldn't even try it, but I know the word stereotyp.
I want to get.
Tired. Just say it.
I want to get a Noah's take. I want to get a Noah's take on this.
Actually, before we go to a Noah, I have to read these comments from the chat room. If I could speak tonight.